In this week's version of the investment series, we're going to tackle the oft asked question of what's your benchmark? Talk about benchmarking in general, where it's helpful and where it's often misunderstood. So this week we're going to talk about benchmarking. We'll get into where we think it's helpful and appropriate and where it's often misplaced or misunderstood. But before we get into there, I wanted to talk about why. Why is this such an area of fascination? There's a lot of reasons probably, but the simplest and most important is people want to know that their hard-earned money is doing what it should do, helping them not only achieve financial security, but again, some of those big fun goals that they have in mind for themselves and their loved ones as well. So what is the challenge to that? Well, the challenge is a lot of times markets aren't going to show you the thing that you think you need to see to know that's happening, which is gains in your portfolio. If we look at the stock market, about half of trading days are negative, about a third of months, about a quarter of years. And so there's a lot of opportunities, moments in time to think, oh man, this isn't working. And of course, selling at those moments only to maybe come back later is the classic sell low, buy high that actually works against you in achieving your goals. Simon Sinek, the author, had a great way of thinking about this, although he wasn't talking about finances, where he was just talking about getting in shape or relationships. And he's like, we think it's going to be the grand workout or the grand gesture to our friend or spouse that's going to get us healthy or get us into a better relationship, when he goes, it's actually the consistency of a 20, 30-minute commitment. And he's like, the challenge again is at any given point in time, you're going to look in the mirror after that workout and say, man, I don't see a difference. It must not be working. But if you'll stick to it, if you'll commit to the regime, commit to a process, this is certainly true of investing, and you give it some time, and he says, I don't know how much time, suddenly you look in the mirror or you look at the status of that relationship and it's what you hope to see. It's the result that you hope to have. And that's exactly what we think and know can happen with investments. Again, to come back full circle on those stock market returns, if you look at 5 years out, you have a 90% probability of being positive. 20 years out, you have historically a 100% chance. But how do we buy ourselves that time? How do we not let benchmarking trip us up and trick us into thinking it's not working when really it's just that time that we need? Next point is really, what is benchmarking? Benchmarking classically, and where it really came from, the value proposition of, say, a US large cap stock manager saying, hey, you should hire me. I'll pick these stocks versus those stocks, and I will outperform the S&P 500. And so you should pay me for that service. Of course, as time has gone on for a variety of different reasons I don't have time to get into, that's proven to be very difficult, almost near impossible, particularly with respect to the S&P 500. But what happens is that concept of evaluating to see, is it working, gets applied to investors and their everyday financial lives, where it certainly has some places, and we'll get into that, but where it trips people up is, again, they're not a fund manager, they're a family trying to achieve their own individual specific goals. So where do we think benchmarking is helpful? Well, number one is knowing whatever we've bought, if we're talking about the investment side of things, what is its purpose? And we always evaluate things, as if you've been following us for any length of time, through the lens of live. All of these are different performance metrics, from liquidity to income to reducing volatility to expected return. Each one of these is its own form of performance. If you need a lot of liquidity, but you buy a rental and you can't sell it, then that's an issue. It's not performing in the way you needed it to be. If you need a lot of income, maybe you're on the verge of retiring or have retired, or just need some supplemental income in your day-to-day life, and you buy an S&P 500 index, it's not going to give you a lot of income, and so therefore it's not performing, where as another investment that might not have the long-term return of stocks, but provides you a lot of income, is giving you exactly the kind of performance you need. Volatility. People get very emotional about their portfolios. Money, health are two of the things that trigger any of us just on a natural level. And so again, for a lot of people, the volatility of a lot of different types of investments just isn't what they're looking for, wouldn't perform in the way that they hope to see it. Expected return is, again, the classic sense. Hey, how much money might I make on this investment over time? And that's certainly one, but it's one of 4 different benchmarks we want to look at. I'll give you one quick example of this. So we've got 2 different funds. Both are US stock funds. This is a real fund we use, but for regulation purposes, we're going to put a question mark there. It's got 100% liquidity, so that's perhaps performs how people want. This is just the S&P 500. It's got 100, so we'll call that a tie. This, though, and why we use it for a lot of retired clients, corporate clients, it's got a 6.5% income stream. So it really helps people, again, with an income goal or performance benchmark that they want to achieve, hit that, versus maybe 1.5% for the S&P 500. Picks up maybe 60% of the volatility or the downside versus 100 here, but may have a long-term expected return of 8 versus 9% for the S&P. Now, if you're a young person piling money in, dollar cost averaging with every paycheck, just trying to maximize that money out till you get close to retirement, this probably is something you should be looking at. By the same token, if you're a retired client who needs more income and less volatility in your life, this is not the benchmark you want to have. It's probably something more like this, which leads us to point 3. You are the benchmark. Because of all the varying returns over time that we talked about earlier, and that you can't over a certain segment of time know what any market may or may not give you, that's what we call sequence of returns risk. It's not about beating the S&P or the BARC Ag or any given benchmark. It is really about helping you diversify in a way that can afford you the time to stay in the game to get the returns you want to see. And so no, a municipal bond is never going to return you over the long term what a stock might, but it may be the thing that, again, buffers your emotions during market volatility, which is kind of the typical first challenge, or 2, provides the liquidity and security for an unexpected expense. That means you wouldn't have to sell your stocks at a loss at a time when you may have, again, one of those unexpected expenses arise. And so this conservative aspect helps afford you the ability to be more aggressive. That's about customizing a portfolio, again, for life in general, but then specifically for what is your style within that live paradigm. In summary, benchmarking does come back to purpose, plan, portfolio. Are we helping you achieve your purpose? That's benchmark number 1. The plan that we've built to help drive and address that purpose, is that actually being propelled by then the third part, which is portfolio. And that portfolio, though, is all about customization. It's all about you. What is your style? What are your goals? What are your needs? Helping you to find that benchmark, helping you stay on track. That's what we love to do for you here at 10 Capital. As always, appreciate your time.